Good evening, every pony and every creature. Welcome to tonight's stream for DAG. As always, I am Drada Arcana, and we're finally going to finish up the turns. Oh my gosh, it's the end phase. It's the last stream of the turn-based, and even more exciting news. It is the free giveaway tonight. Who will win it? Who will win a free SR? That's right. The card tonight is an SR from High Magic. As long as you comment, or if you choose to comment and you haven't yet throughout the entire month, tonight I will be announcing the winner. We have 4 people in the running. Woo! The free card is a Princess Luna Web of Dreams from the High Magic set. That is the SR that I'll be giving away tonight. And yeah. So anyways, I've been having a blast. I'm totally been prepping for North American Continentals at Ponyville Cider Fest and stuff. So I've been getting everything ready for that, and yeah, so let's kind of just go over a little bit kind of what's happened over the course of these last few streams. So we talked about the ready phase. We've talked about the troublemaker phase. We talked about the main phase and the score phase. So tonight is the final phase, and I have a deck that I'm not going to be reviewing, but I'm going to be revealing a deck I had created over the course of the week to kind of show you a really interesting deck that I had actually developed with an interesting system. So more about the deck a little later. It's a deck I developed that I'd like to share with all of you. So first things first. I said everything was going fine, and Twilight with me here said that everything was going fine at the last stream until I made 2 realizations after re-watching my stream. One of which was audio did not record on one of my slides because I had accidentally made a technical issue, and I didn't realize this until after reviewing the stream, and it was kind of an important slide. So we're going to jump right into it and cover 2 things that I did wrong in the previous stream. Just so we're making sure that there's no mistakes, or making sure that Drada doesn't make mistakes. I mean, come on, I make mistakes all the time. I'm not, a judge. I'm no judge. But let's see what I missed. Okay. Last stream, there was a slide, and many of you guys may recognize the slide, and you're like, but Drada, there was like 3 minutes of you not saying anything, and I'm going to be like, yes, I know, because I was stupid and put in a outro audio capture versus that. Anyways, technical issues. Let me go over this slide of what I tried to do. So when you're confronting, when you move to the score phase and you're attempting to confront, there are things that stop you from confronting. As you can see, let's say my opponent has a Changeling Mimics on their problem, covering up that problem. If I have characters there, that Changeling Mimics is going to stop me from confronting that problem, because troublemakers stop you from confronting. And because Changeling Mimics is a normal troublemaker, it just means that I can't confront that problem if Changeling Mimics belongs to my opponent. This stops me from confronting Save the Day. While if an epic is in play, like Starlight Glimmer, Enforced Equality, neither player is going to be able to confront that problem. So when you get to the score phase and you're going to attempt to confront a problem, you cannot confront that problem if there's a troublemaker there. While when there's nothing there, yes, you can confront the problem if you have the power. Just something I wanted to get off my chest from last stream that I really messed up. Another thing I messed up, and I totally forgot about this, I had mentioned Day Shift. several times during the last stream. And, okay, day shift activates not during the priority window, but during the pre-priority processing window. I had made that mistake. I had remembered there was a long argument on this in some of the chats for the game, and it definitely went over day shift. Day shift happens during the pre-priority processing of the priority window directly after the problem's replace. Please watch last week's stream to kind of know where I kind of went with this. I'm not going to go into the full thing about it. It activates during the pre-priority processing, which means that if it's your turn and you are causing the problems to replace, any problem that happens during the resolve step will also be put into the pre-priority processing triggers. So you will activate day shift if it's your turn and you own the day shift. But if it's your opponent's turn, they can activate their problem, which could be like unreasonable demands, Nightmare Night, what a frame. They can activate that first, causing day shift not to activate. It just depends on who has priority. But day shift happens during the pre-priority processing, not the priority window. Okay, with that out of the way from the previous stream, that was a lot of information real quick. I hate going back over, I shouldn't say hate, but I dislike going back over lots of different information from previous streams. So let's jump right into the end phase. You did the big show. You're Trixie. You had a phenomenal turn. You scored multiple points, and you did everything you wanted to accomplish during that turn. You're all out of fireworks and stuff. You did the big rain boom. You're so happy and stuff. Now comes the end phase. So we're done with the score phase. We get into the end phase. End phase starts. Priority window. I feel like I've been saying this like a whole lot in my last several streams. Priority window, priority window, priority window. And once again, anything can happen during a priority window. So let's talk about this, because the end phase's priority window is a little bit different than the priority window at the start of the turn. It's a little different because of the way that the end phase is structured. So in the ready phase, the priority window happens, and the pre-priority processing happens kind of like before you start the priority window. So anything that happens before you can do anything on the priority window of the ready phase, you start with a pre-priority processing, and then you go to priority window, and then everything else happens. Well, it's kind of the same structure on the end phase, except for the fact that the end phase works a little differently in that the pre-priority processing happens, because pre-priority processing happens before the priority window. So if a card comes into play, so for example, Mare and the Moon. Princess Luna, Mare and the Moon, comes back into play by pre-priority processing at the start of your turn. Then the ready phase happens, and you can banish that card. Well, similarly, and we're going to go over a couple cards here, but in the end phase, anything with an end of turn, like comes into play, end of turn or whatever, and I'm going to bring up here 3 cards to kind of represent the overall idea of entering play. So let's talk about Princess Luna Good Night Sleep for a second, which is similar to Luna's Future. Good Night Sleep states that when this card enters play, banish a friend, you banish one of your friends, and that friend will come into play at the end of the turn. So you banish, let's say, another Good Night Sleep with Good Night Sleep. What this does is the Good Night Sleep that was banished during your main phase will come into play at the end of the turn. And let's say you just decide to choose Princess Luna Goodnight Sleep again. Goodnight Sleep cannot come into play because the pre-priority processing has already happened. This is because there is no additional priority window during the end phase allowing you to use pre-priority processing. And before everyone's like, but Drada, I want to activate. No, you can't. No but Drada is there. There's no excuse to activate. No excuse to force something to come into play when it can't. Luna's Future, when you play it as an event, it causes that friend to come into play at the end of the turn. This still happens during the pre-priority processing. So Goodnight Sleep and Luna's Future are kind of the same, just one's an event and one's a friend. Now, there are several main characters, and before everyone's like, but Drada, you're only going to cover one? Why? I'm like, I'm just choosing one to represent a whole bunch. Scootaloo is a main that a lot of MLP players know. She's Rainbow Dash's favorite filly. I wish Twilight had a favorite filly. I mean, Twilight, do you have a favorite filly? What's that? No? You like them all? Oh, is Baby Flurry Heart? What? Anyways, enough with the memes. So Scootaloo, what it does is that at the end of your turn. Now, I should note this. Scootaloo also activates during the pre-priority processing of the end phase. So what happens is that Scootaloo is not activating during the priority window. It's activating during the pre-priority processing. Any end of turn effect on a main, on a event, on a friend that activates the moment that the end of turn happens, it occurs during the pre-priority processing. So Scootaloo will move like two of its friends, as long as you exhaust them, to wherever you want during the pre-priority processing, which means that you could take advantage of, after moving them, you could like portal something or, during that priority window, move maybe something else or whatever. And that's kind of how the mains and stuff work. So like Sweetie Belle, Cutie Mark, Crusader, during the pre-priority processing, you get back a resource from your discard. If that resource has hasty, you could play it before the end of the turn, and things like that. So that's kind of the thing about the mains there. So after this priority window and everyone's done with the priority window and stuff, there is no longer a priority window. What happens now is something called the cleanup step. This is kind of the final part of the end phase. I had told a lot of people that the end phase is a really short kind of phase, and some people were like, but Drada, it's not really short at all. No, it's probably the simplest phase out of them all, because the ready phase has you drawing cards, gaining AT, and several other things, while the end phase is just like wrapping up any last minute effects. So the cleanup step. This is kind of important to note, that the cleanup step is done by the game. So it's completely uninterruptible. The step one. Now, the order of steps is kind of important to remember. Even though you really can't do anything during this time, because the game is going to do what it wants to do. Step one. After the priority window, you discard hand size as long as you're over 8 cards. If you have 8 cards in hand, you're good. But you need to discard down to 8 if you have more than 8 cards in your hand. Next, you're going to retire down to home limit. Now, cards that say this card does not contribute to your home limit or whatever ignores this. That's what those cards are for. So things like, let's see if I can get a good one off the top of my head. Zipperwill, pet collector, which has the effect critters don't count towards your home limit. So any critters that are in play are going to stay at home because you don't retire them to home limit because they're not part of the home limit. But anything that's over your home limit, like if you have 5 friends that are not ignoring home limit or whatever, you have to retire maybe 1 if your home limit's 4. Next, until end of turn effects end. That's the final step. So these are things like Singing Barrel, which states that your main has that, when it enters play, choose a color. Your main has that color until end of turn. And this is really important to note because until end of turn effects, this is when they end. So Join the Herd is another one. Singing Barrel. I can't think of any others right now. There's a whole bunch of cards that say until end of turn. So just some important things to note. This is when now these things end. So what happens after all this cleanup and stuff? Well, that's it. That's it for the end phase. So we're officially done with the end phase, and that is kind of that is the end of it all. The end phase comes to an end. That's it. That's all the phases, guys. You guys managed to pull with me through all of this. It's been, a lot of blast going over those turns and stuff. But woo! I am so glad to finally have all of that detail out there. It's now out there on the web. People will be able to share these videos with individuals who are interested in learning the in-depth guides to the game. Granted, it is going to be like 3 to 4 hours long. It's like watching Lord of the Rings Extended Edition. But you're learning how to play the game with maybe some interesting commentary. Or I could be crying like, it's not effective at all and people aren't learning. Anyways. Enough with the melodrama. A couple announcements that I need to make. There are a lot of things I'm working on right now. Before I get to the deck, let's talk a little bit about news and what's kind of coming up for Drada Arcana Gaming. I'm working with some special guests. Names will be revealed at a later date, and closer to when the time comes. The first guest will be probably next week, and I will be revealing what the stream is. Of course, every Wednesday is when I release what the stream is going to be. So when we have a guest on stream, I'm going to try to tailor the stream that's going to help the guests really kind of delve deep down into what they know about the game and stuff. So we will be having a couple guest appearances. If you have been asked to be a guest on my stream and you're currently watching the stream, don't tell anyone. We're kind of going to make it a surprise, if you know what I mean. Otherwise, let's kind of... So, couple streams coming up. I'm trying to move away from the commentary... Kind of like commentary is magic, except I'm trying to move more towards casual players, being more casual with my streams, helping out a lot of the newer players, a lot of the casual players, people who would love to play the game for fun and not be that competitive person. So I'm trying to gear a lot of my streams towards that. With that in mind, let's jump into this casual deck I've developed. I say casual So bear with me here. It's not competitive in the slightest, but you might look at it and be like, but Drada, there are some very competitive cards in there. Well, I know you're anxious to see this deck, folks, but let's go ahead and if anyone would like to make some final comments that is not Hithrock, Fanman Third, Living Silver, or TOC, if you comment right now, I will add your number to the chance to win a secret rare Princess Luna Web of Dreams. If you don't comment in the next 5 seconds, I'm going to roll the die for these 4 people, and whoever wins it is going to be my highest die roll. Are you guys ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, here I go. And the winner is Living Silver. Oh, Living Silver wins a free Web of Dreams. I'm pretty sure he's not on stream at the moment, but he will be getting a Web of Dreams. So, all right, that's our winner for the month of September. Like I said, I'll be doing these rolls every month. So, anyways, guys, let's jump into that casual deck I mentioned. Alright, guys. This is an interesting deck that I've developed. Definitely probably one of the more intriguing ones out there. Alright, it is a pink-white deck running Skystar. Well, alright, so a lot of people may remember posts about blue fairies or something called the Trotting Dead deck, which focuses around Bodyguard and dismissing friends and taking control of friends only to retire them. This deck's a little different. So this deck was developed over the course of a week, focusing around Transform and Bodyguard. Now, before everyone says, but Drada, that doesn't work at all. And I'm going to be like, no, it works really well, too. It is crazy how many tokens you can develop with this deck. Like, this is a really evil deck, I have to admit. So with Bodyguard in play, so what you do is you play Bodyguard. So every time a friend leaves play, you put a 1-power unicorn token into play with Prepared, which means that if your opponent starts a face-off, you get 1 AT. Now check this. Returning a friend to your hand is considered leaving play. Well, making a splash has Transform 2. That means it costs 2 AT to transform. And when it enters play, it makes a 2-power seashell token. Alright, so far not looking too bad, right? Pearl of Transformation not only tutors your transform Skystars, but also drops their transform by 1 AT, which means that once you get making a splash out there, to transform into your 4 AT cost, Air and Sea costs 1 AT. So what the deck basically does is you do this thing called Skystar Cycling, which Skystar Cycling is a term that, you know, a lot of people have thrown out there, but I'm probably one of the ones that kind of sort of started generating it with my pink yellow. But then I discovered this combination. And before I realized it, instead of me relying on my opponent to generate the unicorn tokens, I generate them. Not only that, I'm putting my friends back into my hand to cause Bodyguard to activate, where there's little to no interaction for people. Decks are not going to be able to interact with this system because the whole point is that you're putting the stuff back into your hand, not allowing it to stay on the field where it could be removed by someone else. Instead, you put the card back in your hand, you get a unicorn token, you play another card, you put it back in your hand, you get another unicorn token. This deck was designed to rely on the leave play by putting things into your hand to cause it to leave play. So you cause the stuff to leave play, which is really interesting. It's a really, really fun, evil, like little control deck. And as you can see by the problem deck, it is very control based. Another thing you may notice is look at the cards, and there's little to no white entry. The highest white entry is probably Tender Taps, which requires 3 pink, 3 white. Alright, so they're there for recursion. And Plaid Stripes requires 3 white, and Petite Sneeze requires 4. But besides the point, all your multicolor friends have 1 white rack, 1 pink rack. So here's a little fun thing. So maybe people are like, but Drada, where's Staphus Acanis? You're always like, stick times 30, stick times 30. I'm going to be like, this deck doesn't really need it. Because we have a different friend called, I can't read it from here, but Saphon something. Well, what this card does, when a card leaves play, your main character gets +2 power. So here's an idea. I have Pearl of Transformation out, and I say, let's say I have a Making a Splash out. Okay, I pay 1 AT, I'll put Making a Splash back in my hand, and I'll play Aaron C. Oh, how about my main get +2 power, then Bodyguard activates, I get a 1 power unicorn. I have another idea. Let me transform that again. Back into playing into Making a Splash for 1 AT. Let me get a Seashell token, another unicorn token, and my main gets +2 power. Oh, here's a thought. Let me play my Rarity Soprano with Singing Barrel. Oh, I'll discard that 1 card you needed and draw a card. I'll put Soprano back into my hand with Singing Barrel coming back into my hand. Let me just generate another unicorn token. It's like, how do you stop someone from creating tokens when they're going back to the hand? It's kind of comical. Anyways, so it's an interesting deck that is designed to maximize the pink-white requirements of a semi-competitive deck by utilizing Bodyguard's effect, by bouncing things back to the hand, taking advantage of that leave play ability. Now, before I get a lot of flack from like Commentaries Magic or any other streamers out there, how many cards are in the deck? 45. How much resource removal? 3. Does it meet criteria for a standard, like, perfect deck? Yes. That's if we want to be competitive. I'm not necessarily going to increase the number of cards, but it is a deck that does work really well. I have found that the color requirement doesn't really impact this deck as much as, let's say, another deck. But this is a control deck. When you're looking at this, you might be like, well, isn't it aggro? No, it's a control deck, because it utilizes Eccentric. So the idea is that Aaron C, you can drop it during your opponent's turn. Remember how last phase I talked about the priority window before your opponent chooses which problem to confront? or they choose the problem they wish to attempt to confront, and then that priority window opens up. Well, before they confront that problem, you splash down, let's say, an Aaron Sea. This gives, for 1 AT, you get a unicorn token with this deck, and you give Eccentric 4 to that problem. Which means that if it's a 8 confront on your opponent's side, that means they need 8 power. Well, now it's a 12 power, which means they have to calculate you playing an Aaron Sea every turn. Now, you can also do, like, you could transform 2 Aaron Seas if you have 2 making splashes in play. Well, that's Eccentric 8. Why not double? Why not double the problem's, requirement? And then get unicorn tokens out of it. And it's a fun deck that does a lot of token generation. Now, many of you are like, but why is Party of One in there? And that is an emergency card. Like, you play your Party of One in an emergency situation where your opponent just has a board state that is really impacting your full board state, and you're having trouble keeping up with their board state because they keep doing a lot of removal and stuff. You can use Party of One to clean the board state so you can recover. That's why it's in there. Now, Make This Castle Your Home serves 2 purposes in this deck. Technically 3. It gets you back your Pearl of Transformation in the discard, so that way if it gets put into the discard for any reason, whether it's dismissal and stuff, you can at least recover your Pearl of Transformations because that is a critical card in this deck. It also serves as a draw 2 cards. And that's kind of the 2 main purposes behind Make This Castle Your Home. Of course, it's running the Berry Punch Orange Swirl Belly Flop combination because it's just a good combination for 2 AT. You get technically 2 dismissals. Great. Rarity Soprano is there actually the Soprano yourself. You want to Soprano yourself. Now, I know that sounds weird. Like, most people would be like, but why would I want to Soprano yourself? Before I get a whole bunch of butt draws from everyone, let me explain Rarity Soprano. Rarity Soprano states that when this card, first off, it's hasty, so it's an immediate. When this card enters play, choose a player. Choose a player. That player discards a card and draws a card. You also get to look at that player's hand. So you choose a player, look at that player's hand. That player discards a card and you draw a card. I think it's look at a player's hand. I might be reading that wrong. Give me a sec here. Let me confirm that real quick. Yeah. Okay, you look at a player's hand. Let's see. When this card enters play, look at a player's hand and choose a card. That player discards that card, then draws a card. Okay, so the way this works is you can choose yourself, look at your own hand, discard a card you don't need, and draw a new card. You can basically Soprano yourself, and then you can put Soprano back into your hand to generate tokens. So you can do that. You could choose your opponent just to see what they got, so for hand knowledge too. But Soprano is technically there to Soprano yourself and to generate bodyguard tokens. Plus, we have Tinder Taps in there to recover bodyguard in case we lose bodyguard. Plaid Stripes is there to slow down your opponent, and Changeling Mimics is there to block off your opponent's problems, so that way you can slow them down. So not only can you stop them from confronting, you can also slow down their plays as well. I'm probably going to get like, but Drata, why, if it's a control deck, then why do you have It's a Secret to Every Pony? It's a Secret to Every Pony problem also affects the transform cost. It does not stack with Pearl of Transformation, though, because both say to a minimum of 1. But let's say you don't have Pearl out and your problem is it's a secret to every pony. Your transforms cost 1 AT. At least as long as it's the first time you transform that turn. So I like It's a Secret to Every Pony in anything that is transforming, because it basically gives you 5 ways to drop your transform costs in the deck. Blackmail at 1, the moment you get the blackmail, you really want to stop that problem from flipping, because the idea is to make it so your opponent can't confront. And that way you're just getting points off of blackmail every turn, every turn, every turn. You just want to make it as hard as you can to stop your opponent from confronting. That's kind of what the deck wants to do. And of course, because we have massive token generation, Minuet Schadenfreude. Nothing better than retiring 15 tokens to make Minuet 18 power with Eccentric 18. I mean, come on, who wouldn't want to do that? All in all, it's a nice, cool deck. Probably the hardest card to get in this deck is probably Pearl of Transformation. So that's going to be the hardest card to get for this deck if you would like to play the deck. Technically, you don't have to run Pearl of Transformation. You could run in its place, like maybe Feel the Beat if you don't have a Pearl. You could replace it with Feel the Beat, so when you move a character, the next card you play costs 1 less. Or the next friend you play costs 1 less, so Transform works that way. It's just a lot slower. Or you can just rely on the 2 AT to transform every turn, which will just increase the transform costs. Pearl of Transformation is not mandatory for the deck to function. Granted, the Rarity Sopranos are going to be really hard to get for a lot of casual players. You could replace this with any Ponytone friend. Literally. It could be, as long as it's like pink or white. I guess the best one would probably be Torch Song, because it's I think Torch Song's 1 pink rack and it fetches out Singing Barrel. So you could just like fetch out all your Ponytone cards with that and keep putting it back into your hand, only to search out another one, still causing the same system with Rarity Soprano. So there are things you can do to kind of mitigate the cost of the deck. It just might not flow as fluid as this version. So if you're a more casual player, just take out the URs for those 2 things. Anything that drops the next cost of your friend by like 1 is sufficient enough to allow you to transform. But you probably will be fine with just transform, and you don't need to use Pearl of Transformation. Like I said, it'll just slow down the deck. But there are alternative options. All in all, it is a control deck. It's a fun deck to play. I will make sure to post the link up there. So, I think for the most part, that's pretty much everything for this stream. And, so yeah, all in all, I think that, you know, I gave you guys a cool little deck, and we went over the final end phase steps, and we got everything covered. I'm going to try to put these all together at some point, just to have a really long video for the game, and then I might try to also put together a shorter video going over things a little bit more simply, so that way it's all condensed into one, kind of like one video that will only take like 10 minutes to view. It'll be like in a full turn in 10 minutes on how to play the game. But all in all, this is more in-depth stuff. So if you know that people are struggling with the different phases, please share these videos. I'm sure they will help. We've been needing something like this in the game for a while, and I've finally decided to do it. Because I've done it, the next stream will be talking about how a casual player, I'm still working out some of the details, but hopefully we're going to talk about how a casual player can move up to being a meta player. How do you go from casual to meta? And that's going to be the next stream. We're going to talk about how, how someone that just plays for fun or whatever, how do they get the mindset? How do they do the deck building? How do they construct their decks and stuff? That is my hope for the next stream next week. That's kind of what I'm working with right now. I will have an actual stream announcement Wednesday. But all in all, guys, I think this is a fun stream. I had a blast. I have a blast every night, right, Twilight? No fun. Luna's standing over there saying, but fun. It's nighttime. Fun. I know Pinkie Pie's having fun. Anyways, guys, enough with the memes. All in all, I think I'm just talking at this point. I'm kind of just talking in you guys' ears. Anyways, thank you for stopping by Drata Arcana Gaming. As always, guys, give your love to whichever pony you want to give your love to. Give your love to Luna if you'd like to help you sleep at night. Give your love to Twilight if you're a bookworm. Don't get too stressed out. Don't freak out like Twilight all the time. And I'll definitely see you guys on the next stream. And remember, no but Drata comments. Otherwise, I'm going to cry. Twilight, they're saying but Drata. Anyways, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I had a blast, and catch you all next time. So long.